Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Low-Code Cafe, episode 67. My name is Bogdan Litescu. I'm the founder and CEO of Plankton App. And for those of you that are new to this event, know that it's a weekly webinar we are doing for the community. So it's a technical event. We are showcasing new features. We are telling stories that we learn on the community forums and on the help desk. And the largest chunk is actually doing hands-on low-code development, and this is the real low-code development experience. It's not a scripted demo. So it's very useful to see the process of thinking, of addressing bugs, of tying everything together. So it's very useful for training as well. This webinar is being recorded and all past editions are on our YouTube channel. Make sure to visit, subscribe, and subscribe to the notifications as well. We'll post the link in the chat window in a bit. And the agenda for today, I will walk a bit over the new release that's coming out, and then we'll hear stories from the trenches with Dale Warner, our head of support, and still Dale will continue showing us building a new system from scratch with the purpose of replacing a legacy system. So this is a big use case in this world, and I think it will be very, very interesting. Okay, so let's jump directly into the product roadmap. So right now we are just near code freeze with the next release 1.17. What this means is we still have a bit of glitches here and there to fix. We are aiming to do the code freeze today or tomorrow, the latest. After which we'll begin testing, and on Friday we'll also launch this for the beta program. So in case you didn't know, we've set up a beta program in place, and we have Ben Santiardo jumping on board to lead the program. And it's our first iteration. If you want to join the beta program, reach out to me, to Ben, or to Dale. We'll make sure to set you up. And just to give you a teaser of what's in this release. The two major capabilities are the app templates and the revamp UI. So the app templates actually is just a starter template simplified for now, and in a future release it will be much more powerful with more templates to start with. But I will spend a bit of time going over the UI and just give you like a real feeling of what it will look like. So as you see, we redid the sidebar to be more modern, nicer looking, but also we added a bit of more capabilities to the sidebar to make it easier to find stuff and to navigate around. First, we moved some of the buttons here at the top. So preview takes you back to the root of the system. So before that, it used to be directly on the application name, and I think it was a bit difficult to find. And also, we added this history button that points directly to the GitHub repo that is connected to the application. So because in general, I have configured a GitHub repo for this application, history will take me there. So it's a nice shortcut to see what changed, when changed, who changed the application. We've also added this menu here with the purpose of integrating the application inside the bigger ecosystem. So again, you have the preview button, but then you have the manage apps and the support centers and the community forum links that take you to all these other systems. So from here you can go directly to the community portal, so you see everything. You can get involved, contribute. So our idea was, one, to get more people to join the conversations on community portal, but also to make it obvious that the system is not just the system that you have, but also it's also where you manage apps, which is a different system, where you get support, where you talk to others, and so on. So yes, Probably we'll extend this in the future. We have some feature requests about making it customizable so people can add their own items. So it's a start. One other thing, we replaced the getting started page. So we had quite an ugly and basic getting started page with 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of bullet list. Now we've embedded actually the Learn portal in here, so you can get either to the documentation easily. So you have the full documentation here, or you can start the course on Low-Code Academy. So it's a very good landing page for getting started on the learning path. So yes, this would be at the UI level a bit of revamp. We are also getting down in the modules. So just as a teaser, the automation screen, we already read it to look more like the rest of Plantanet. And we'll do the same for all screens. Like API, for example, it's about to be done next, but you see here is still the old UI looks like a different movie compared to this one that we already revamped. Of course, some glitches here and there still to solve. Other very, very nice things that we did, we started to clean up actions. So one of the category that was causing a lot of confusions with our users was the entities group. So entities which were not actually Plantanet entities, it was more like a temporary in-memory entity. So we renamed these to list and objects. All actions that existed still exist. They are just in this category and they are slightly named different. So we replace entity with list in all places. So you can create a list from JSON. It was called load entities from JSON before that. Nothing will break on upgrades. Everything will still work because behind the scenes we haven't changed the IDs, just let's say the titles and descriptions of it. And there's a lot more cleanup that we did here. So let me maybe jump to a module. So here I have, for example, an action form that is the form to add an entry. And here on the, let's look a bit at the button, at the add action. We got rid of some of the other categories as well. Like there was a DNN category, which was just some file-related actions. We moved those to file management. There were 2 dynamic CRM folders. We merged them into a single one. There was a DNN shard folder that's completely gone. We renamed it to UI actions. So all actions should still be there. So we haven't removed anything. Everything should still work on upgrade. Just the naming and where you find them would be a bit different. And we plan to continue on this path to better organize these actions, because I think in time it grew to be quite big and quite unintuitive at some point to find things. We've also did some effort to split the file-related actions into those that are low level, so file management kind of actions, and those are that are related to documents. So working with HTML, Word, PDF, Excel files, and so on. So this one moved to the documents folder. We grouped them all there. This used to work, but it didn't have all. They were scattered across other categories. So I would say that this is like some of the major items, and of course you'll notice the app templates, especially when you start a new application. You'll notice a starter screen that looks very cool. That will ask you either you want to start from template or from scratch. So we are very happy with this release. I think it's one of the best releases this year, and the team really did a wonderful job and delivered an amazing experience. So we are going to start again. We are going to start the beta program on Friday. If you want to join, reach out. And that's it. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Hello, good morning, Bogdan. The looking very nice, and we're getting that kind of feedback on the chat. There's also a when will this be released question?
So the beta will run from this Friday until 17th. That's when we originally aimed to release. We might, because we pushed the beta for 2 days, we might also push the release for 2 days. But I guess we'll know this by next week, depending on how many things come up. So 17th is still the official date.
Very good.
And of course, if you want to get the beta in the meantime, join the program. You can get it early, test it out.
Great, that's what we've got.
Awesome. Then I will let you take over, Dale, and give us the stories from the trenches.
Very good. I'm going to start by posting on the chat the links from this episode. And then let me share here. And so from the trenches today, picked out 2 easy things to talk about. One is that we got a question in the last couple of days dealing with, hey, how can I learn more about what kind of platform is querying my coming to my website? In particular, there was the question about this particular client was trying to do something specific with knowing what kind of browser it is. Android, is it iPhone, is it a Windows platform? And so just pointing out that the browser tokens showing things like the browser, the platform, whether or not it's a mobile device, are kind of useful. And I'm going to put this up. I put up a quick screen, and if you're interested in seeing how that works, you might point your phone at the QR code. But here for my Chrome browser, it's showing me that it's a Chrome browser on a WinNT platform, not a mobile device. And since it's not a mobile device, it's not showing the device model or manufacturer. But if you pointed at that with a phone, it would say, in my case, it would say Apple and iPhone. And so it would give you some kind of idea about what kind of device you're dealing with. And then you can, if you have something that's very device specific, like, for example, push notifications, you would be able to use that information as part of that. So that's an interesting one that came up in support. And then I'm going to click away there. The next one, I just wanted to focus a little bit on the community portal. So if there's anybody that's not using the portal, it's a great resource for you to use. And there's a couple of things that you should do immediately, at least as soon as I stop talking. You should go to the community portal and subscribe to all questions. That way you'll get notifications as people are posting questions. Maybe you have the same question and you can follow along. Maybe you know the answer, but click that subscribe button. And then that's on the main community portal page that you subscribe to all the questions. And then the other one is that, and this is kind of an underused feature, but we're going to talk about it here a little bit more. As you're working, if you've posted a question, look for, if you finally get the answer, look for this accepted answer button, the green checkbox, and click it, because that lets us know that you got an answer that you were happy with, and that's the answer to the question. The other is, along the way, if you see something that's useful, there's an upvote, and there's also a downvote button. I'll let you decide which one you want to use, but the vote answer up button will help to identify what the quality answers are. So take a look for that. We're having a team hangout tomorrow, and I was pulling together some statistics for that team hangout. And so you get a preview of that. In the last year, our community forum, the volume is kind of interesting. We've had 434 questions that are posted, and within that, there's 1,744 answers. So there's a fair amount of activity going on here. A lot of the answers are back and forth dialogue. You might get a question and back and forth and finally get solved. But there really is quite a bit of activity going on. So if you post something, there's a really, really good chance you'll get an answer. That accepted answer button points to, we've had, of these 434, we've had 93 that have accepted answers. We've really, I suspect that us and the community have answered most of the questions that were put out there, but so we hope to see that accepted answer feature used a little bit more. And then there's 138 times when somebody has upvoted a question. So again, I'm hoping to see if there's good information being posted that we see upvoting. But and then for what it's worth, we only had one downvote of answers in in the last year. So that kind of gives us an idea of the volume of what's happening on that forum. And then it's also kind of interesting participation. Who's posted questions, who's posted answers. There's 98 different people that have posted questions over the last year, and 94 people have participated in some form with the answers. And 17 different people have gotten accepted answers. So just, it's a great resource. Hope to see it used more and more, but it's a little bit over a year old now. That is from the trenches for today. And so we can move right on into hands-on low coding. And the challenge today is to deal with outdated legacy applications. What, low code in no time. What can we do to replace an outdated legacy application? So first of all, just kind of introducing the topic. There's several different ways, and this is not an exhaustive list, but some patterns that you can use to integrate or to deal with a legacy application. You can completely replace it, and that's the biggest effort, but perhaps the best long-term way. You have to decide in your circumstance whether it's worth that level of investment. But there's other patterns that we see in use, including integrating with a legacy system. So you've got your desktop system that continues to run, but you put a Plantain app application beside it, where you either replace certain functionality slowly or provide new functionality, but only provide your new functionality on the new system. And then another possibility is to work with your legacy system using APIs. So if you set up Plantain app application, you can add APIs and work directly with the application from at the API level. So that's some of the patterns that are available. What we're going to set out to do is to rebuild a legacy application. Of course, we're not going to rebuild an entire thing, but we'll get started on it. And my objective here is to also use and demonstrate as many of the built-in low-code features that are in Plantain app, and just kind of mention along the way. I mean, first of all, I want you to be able to see all the different parts and pieces in kind of a very short nutshell today, and maybe in the next week or two, to see all the different ways these features come together. So we'll try and touch a lot of them. And so let's take a look first at our legacy application, which in my prior job, I worked with a product called SalesLogix. And so we're going to take a look at SalesLogix contacts. I have a SalesLogix database. This is actually a live application. And so this is a customer relationship management, a CRM system. So we have the person's name and what company they work for, their title, maybe who their assistant is, where we would mail to or ship to. We've got a lot of phone numbers, some preferences for how to contact them, email and website. And so at this top panel of the application, it shows these are our contact level things, one-to-one. Every contact has some of these things. And then on the bottom part of our screen here, we have tabs that we can get into, looking at what do we have planned for the future, what's gone on in the past, maybe some additional details about that particular client. So there's some one-to-one information, some many-to-one information. So we have meetings and phone calls and and emails that are recorded against the client. Maybe we have documents, attachments that have been connected with them. So this is our application, and there's been a lot of, I mean, this was written in the early 2000s, and it had features like you could click and send an email or click and go to the website. There was a lookup capability. If you wanted to look up a particular account, you could type, you could click someplace and you would see account, and you could navigate to a different account. And so there's a lot of built-in functionality. Well, a lot of that, where they spent a lot of effort developing that type of content, is built in now, whether it's into your web browser or into the low-code application. And so we'll focus on some of that stuff as well. So I'm going to put that live application out of the way, and from this point forward, we're going to be looking at some screenshots, unless I just missed something and we need to go back and take a look at it. So here's our application. And so what are we going to get done? Well, what I hope to get done today is that we will build the back end. We'll create data entities, and we're going to do some management screens for create, read, update, delete. That sometimes you'll hear us talk about CRUD. That's create, read, update, delete. So these would be management kind of screens, not your end user screens, but this is the first thing that as you build entities, that Plantain App builds for you automatically. And I'm going to do it in parts and pieces. I'm going to work on in the contact form. I'm going to work through certain sections. We'll do contact information first, and then email and web, and type and status. These get a little bit more complex as we go, or at least it'll demonstrate that we can build slowly and test and make sure we get the right information and then move on. And then the more complex areas we'll do, I kind of want to rethink how we do phone numbers in this application. So we'll look at that, and then we'll dive into those history and planned activities. And if we have time left over, we'll talk about activating search as well. So that's how far we're going to get today. So the areas that we just talked about, those are the ones that I've got circled here, and we'll work through these bit by bit. And I'm going to start here. And because I have some notes that I want to follow along, I will also follow along here on my other screen. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to make a place. We're going to make a contact. We're going to have a spot for their full name, their title, their assistant, and then we're going to also deal with account. That's a little bit more interesting. So here's where we'll start. This is an empty Plantain App instance. I'm going to hit refresh, make sure it's alive, woken up. But this is just the default Plantain App instance, and so we'll just start from scratch in building it. So we'll go to the configuration page. One of the things that I want to do first is, because let's see, sorry, I'm going to navigate around here a little bit. Because what we're building is the management level kind of information and not the end user, I'm going to create a page that's going to be called setup. And so we'll be putting all of our content underneath setup, so we're not creating a big cluttered menu that we'll have to clean up at some point. So we'll add a page, and just going to call it, yes, it's visible in the menu, and it's going to be called setup. I am only giving this, because this is backend, I'm only giving it to people who are developers, so low-code engineers and admins and citizen developers, and then the ability to edit to these same set of people, admins and citizen developers and low-code engineers. And so we'll save it. So now we have a page, and let's navigate to our website. I like to have the website open when I'm developing. I like to have the front end on one tab and the back end on another tab so that we can see it. So all we've done really is added a page called setup, and it doesn't do anything yet. So now we have a place when we start our entities that we can get going. Again, the first one we're going to do is the contact entity. So we will start with the contact name, title, and assistant. So let's do it, create our first entity. And because this is we're going to have a lot of things, a lot of different parts and pieces to our application. So we're going to create a namespace to put the different things. And the first namespace we have is contact. So everything having to do with contacts, we'll put in that namespace. And so we will now select that and create our first entity, which is going to be called contact. Is contacts with an S. And we are going to display that in the menu. And that's going to be, we're going to put it under that setup page that we just created. For properties, we're going to have full name. And that defaults as a text. We're also going to have the title of the person, and we're going to have the assistant. Now, as I add columns, let's see, we have to pick one that's going to be a hyperlink, the display name. So we'll pick that as the full name. But then I like to think through how are we going to use this thing? And so I'm not going to deal with any required things right now. But I like to make things searchable because that way, when you're looking at a listing of things, you can type in that name or title or assistant, and you'll be able to find it. Some things make sense to be filterable. So, for example, you might want to filter on titles, but a lot of things where there's a lot of variation, you're probably not going to want to filter on. And then in most cases, I make things sortable just so you have the ability to click and go. And I'm not, for this purposes today, we have a permissions screen, and I'm not going to get into setting permissions today. So this creates our first entity, and we can, if we were to go back and refresh our front end side, we now have a menu option where we have contacts. We told it to put it under setup, so that's where it is. So this automatically gives us, we can do new, and so we'll do I have no assistant. So it gives us the ability to enter in this information, and we get a listing. These things will sort. I'm also going to just, so we have some other people in here. Let's do. And so we have a couple of people, and that gives us the ability, we can click and see that the sort is working. So we can sort forward or back by title, by assistant if we had one. And if we type in the search bar, we get the name of the ability to search the content that we have. So that gets us to this first one where we've got everything except account. Now, account is a little bit different, and I'm actually, you can have, in CRM world, you have to figure out how we're going to do this when you're managing your contacts. How do you want to manage the relating people to companies? And so we're going to create accounts. We're not going to do much with it today, but we will make it where we have a list of accounts that we can connect people to. We won't have to use it. So let's design that real quickly. We'll create another entity, and because it's a different thing, I'm going to create an account namespace so that we can expand on that. We're not really going to do it today, but we'll start that way. And you'll see more about namespaces as we go. So the namespaces account, we're going to call it an account. The plural is accounts. And again, we want what's included in the menu, and we want to put it under setup. For properties, all we're going to do is have an account name. So we'll add name and make it be, you have to select a display name. So we've selected that property, and we'll make it be sortable. So what this does for us is when we refresh the page, the menu will get refreshed. And so now we'll have accounts as a entity. We can enter an app one time. So now the question is, how do we relate accounts to contacts? We don't have it listed, but we can go back into the entity And we're going to go into the contact entity, and we'll add a property called account. And this time, instead of accepting the text type, we're going to scroll down to the entities and say that what's going to go into here is an account. And as before, we're going to make this searchable and filterable, sortable, and save. And so this will give us the ability, will allow us to automatically link or provide all the logic necessary to link between contacts and accounts. So if I were to go in and edit this account, I can still leave it blank, but I can also say that it's plant an app. And if I started typing in here, it would do the search for me. There's only one, so it's easy to do. But this is going to give us, this helps with standardization, right? So instead of having my account perhaps misspelled or spelled slightly different than the one that I associate with Bogdan, by creating that as an entity and linking it in as I did, we now have enforced standardization of data, which becomes pretty important. To keep it kind of like we had before, contact account, account coming after contact, I am going to rearrange these columns a bit. And I can do that by going into the contact properties and dragging account up higher. So now it'll be name and account, and we'll save that. So now when we have the contact screen, account appears after it, and if we try and do a new one, it has rearranged that as well. So I'm going to do our test contact here, John Abbott. And we don't have we haven't entered an account yet. We can't do that here, so we'll come back to that in just a minute. And John has an assistant. So now we can go to our accounts. We'll also add a new account. When we get around to doing the front end of this, which I hope we'll do over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll build this a little bit differently so that it all flows nicely. But again, this is maintenance level, create, read, update, delete. So we have Abbott Limited. And so now we can go back to contacts and edit Mr. Abbott. And now it's here in the list and we can select it and update. So that gets us, we've replaced this much of the application. We have built in, automatically handled the search kinds of things. We've handled linking to accounts. So with low code and in 10 or 15 minutes, we've handled the initial level of the application. So now let's go on to the next level, where we want to deal with the email and their email address and their website. So these two are really quite easy. We go into contact and edit and just continue expanding. Excuse me. So we'll add their email address. And as we add it, we will choose the type as email. And so this is going to provide the email link functionality that's going to be useful. And again, we like to make this searchable. The data in this column is going to be very variable, so there's not a lot of value in filtering on it, but sorting it is going to be useful. And then in the same way, we want their website. So we'll add website, and this is going to be of the type URL. I still like to make things searchable. It's not going to, filterable doesn't help, but we might sort it, so we'll do that. And so just with those two things, we can save and override. And so now when we go back and refresh the screen, we have additional things that we can add. We have email and website. And so grab the Plantanup website URL. And so I will edit that and put it here. Oop, that's the wrong spot. see that it's asking for a valid email address. It knows when we have one. So it's automatically added logic for the email address. And we've pasted the website address there. So when we update, now we get this functionality. If your browser knows how to open up a website, an email address, you can click and it'll open and try and do an email. And mine's taking a minute to load here, but it's setting up, from me to me. It's automatically set up the to address. And so you have this functionality that the original developer spent a lot of time on and we spent no time on, and it works. In the same way, we can click, and I'm going to open this in a new tab, but it'll take us to the website. So we have this built-in functionality that we can use automatically. And then, so now if we go back to our test data, and Mr. Abbott here, his email is abbott.com, and if we open that, we can see how that looks. Now I'm opening that in a new tab. If you clicked it, it would go there. We just have to use the back button to get back where we came from. So, so we have built now this much functionality, and so we can move on. The next one that we want to do, these are lists of things, just like the account was a list of things. So we're going to make these entities and then link them in. Again, this is largely for data standardization. You can let people type whether somebody is a decision maker or something that's not on the list, and then it just makes it very hard to work with the data. By using an entity, we can force them to use and standardize the information. And if something isn't on the list, you just add it. So here we go. We're going to need contact type, and we're also going to need contact status. So next new entity, we're going to, these are part of contact, and so we'll use the contact namespace. And so the first thing is going to be contact type. And the plural of that is contact types. We do want to display it in the menu, but we want to put it underneath contacts just to help make it make sense. And for the properties, we just need to have a name of the contact type. And so we'll add name and make it be the, we have to add it first. And now we can make it be the selected property, and I'm going to make this sortable. And so we'll save that. And then while we're here, we'll go ahead and do also in the contact namespace, we'll do the other one, contact status. So we'll select that, and this is going to be and also making it display under contact. It will also just have a name. Sortable. So very quickly we have two lists. If we were to look in the menu, it appears under contacts. Automatically pages are, but we haven't related that to the contacts. We'll do that in a minute. First, we'll add in some test data. Now, if we were doing this live and in production, the lists might be long. We might actually want to build an import, but for this purpose, we can just type them in. So for contact type, we're going to have a billing contact. We will have a decision maker. And a technical contact, maybe an other. So that gives us a little test data to work with for contact types. And then for contact statuses, we will add, we're going to have active. So we'll have inactive. I'm going to leave it at that. We're not going to get overly complicated. We'll be either active or inactive. So we have this data. Now we have to relate it to contact, which is very easy to do. We come into the properties of contact and say that we want to have a contact. It's already a contact, so we'll just call it the type, and we will add something that is an entity, and we will pick contact type. And then we'll also have a status. And it is an entity of contact status. So now every contact can have one contact type and one contact status. Doesn't have to have it. I'm still staying away from required, but I'm going to make this searchable so that it's useful in the grid. This is standardized information, so it makes sense to make it filterable. And I always like sortable. Sortable is my friend. So we save that. And so now when we return to contacts, we now have type and status next to it. And so if we were to edit John Abbott, he is the decision maker. See, we automatically get this drop-down list, and he is active. And if I were to edit myself, I am going to be a technical contact, I guess, and I am definitely active. And Bogdan is going to be a active decision maker. So just kind of taking a quick look at the choices that we made, we have this filterable functionality, and because we said that these were filterable because it has the standardized data, we can say that we would just want to see decision makers, and that pops in there like that. And if we had some that were active and some inactive, we could say active, and now we have active decision makers. So that's filtering. And then beyond that, maybe we want to see search is now working against all those fields. And so that's built-in functionality. We want to sort in order by type. That gives us the ability to do that. So built in lots of functionality that just happens just as a result of building the entities. And so we've conquered one more thing. So now we start, let's see, I don't want to move forward, not back. So now we start getting into some of the interesting things where we want to rethink how the application works. The old application had a spot, one for work number, one for mobile number, one for fax number, one for home, one for other. And if you got outside this pattern, you were stuck. If you had two mobile numbers, for example, what do you do with that? Well, do you stuff it in other? How does that work? So I am going to, as I'm rebuilding this application, I want to rethink a little bit. And what I want to do is to make phone numbers many to one or against our contact so that we can have multiple work numbers, we can have multiple mobile numbers, and they'll all still appear very nicely. We can link them in, but we're rethinking and improving this because of our, let's say, our experience with the application. We know we need to make changes. So this is going to break down then into two things. It's going to have a phone number type or a phone type that's going to be work, mobile, fax, home, other. So we're going to have to build a list for that. And then we're going to have phone numbers, and we're going to want to link them to contacts. So let's work through that process. So the first thing is going to be that we're going to have a new entity that is we're going to connect it to to contact rather. And it's going to be phone type. And phone types. It's going to stay in the menu, and we're going to put it under the contacts page. And so the phone type is going to be, it's going to have a name. And let's see, do I need anything else? No. So we'll select that and make it sortable and save. And so now if we go into our application and refresh, we can look at contacts, and we have phone types, and we can enter those in. So we can get that out of the way now. So we have work. Anybody still really have a fax number anymore? And maybe we know one of our problems is that they have a vacation house. So we'll have their vacation home number, something like that. So we have our phone types. So now we can move on to how are we going to input our phone numbers. And so we need an entity for that. So we'll create it. And it's also going to be a contact namespace, and it's going to be number, numbers. It will display in the menu, in our maintenance menu, our setup menu under contacts. And so we'll have a couple of different things. First of all, it's going to have a type. Add that and pick from our entities. It's going to have a phone type. So every phone number will have one phone type, and then we will make will be the phone number. I am going to make that be of the type, where is it? Phone. There it is. And then finally, we will have, I know that some of these phone numbers in this database have extensions, additional information, and so on. We'll just allow some text that will be the extension number or extension information. And we'll make the phone number be the display name. And so let's see, what are we going to do? We might, it might be useful to have these filtered, and might be useful to sort phone numbers. Probably no value in sorting extensions, so we won't do that. And so now we have the ability to enter phone numbers, or at least we have the entity to hold them. And so the last thing that we'll do then is to link that up into contact. So we go to contact, we add a phone numbers property. And this time, instead of saying that we want to do an entity, we're going to say it's a list of entities. And so it's going to be a list of phone numbers. They can enter many phone numbers. And so we choose list of phone numbers and save and override. And so now we can see what that gives us. Refresh the screen and go to contacts. And so now we can see that we have our three contacts, and all of them have no phone numbers entered. And so we're going to stick with our John Abbott and enter phone numbers for him. When we click on the phone numbers link, we go to a John Abbott record. We have details for John. We can see all the same kinds of information, but now we have a phone numbers spot. For this context, the only button that makes sense is add. And so we'll eventually remove this add existing button. But we will add, and the contact, we have the ability to add a work number, and John's work number is 312-555-7854, and he has no extension, so we'll do that, and we'll add his other numbers. And so he has a mobile number, and that is 312-555-1234. Fax number, so it's there on the list. And finally, this one. This was a home number. Notice it's intelligently applying logic to the phone number, and if you could pick different countries and get that to work for you. And then the last thing we can just demonstrate that maybe have we solved our other problem? Is it the work number that we want to be able to have two work numbers? So that. So now when we look at John Abbott, if we go back to our contacts and look, we see that John Abbott has 5 phone numbers, and we've automatically built the logic that opens this up and has the ability to see his phone numbers. So if you needed to call John, you'd see that. Let's see, at this point, I'm going to add one more thing, and then I'm going to take any questions if there are any questions. So you can be thinking about that. I want to deal with the, if we go back to our original problem, dealing with preference. What is the preferred phone number? So I'm in our entity, in our phone numbers entity, I'm going to edit that a little bit and add a property called is preferred number. And instead of being a text, I'm going to do Boolean. This will give us a checkbox or a true false, depending on where we're looking at it. And so we can save that, and we might make that filterable, might make it sortable. And so now when we're looking at phone numbers and refreshing, we now have a is preferred number choice. This interface isn't, it's the default one, and it allows for good maintenance, but it doesn't support editing very well. So in this case, if John's work phone number was his preferred one, we would have to open this page and edit it and say, yep, it's his preferred phone number. So front end is going to be a little bit different than back end. We can get there with what's been automatically generated, but now we can see that his work phone number is the preferred phone number. So this is the maintenance level create, update, read, delete logic. If we have an extra phone number that that we don't want, we could delete it out of here. So it's in the same way as we're dealing with contacts, we have the ability to delete contacts out as well. So if something needed to go away, you could click on that. So we've got the ability to create, to see them, manipulate them. We've got a lot of built-in functionality. We didn't get quite as far as what I'd hoped to today, probably because I'm talking too much. But again, now's the time. If anyone has any questions, it'd be a good time to do that. Where we'll go next time, and this is a pretty good dividing spot. We want to be able to do this notes history, the ability to record what is either pending in the future or what has happened in the past with this customer. And once we get there, we're going to start building some logic. It's still going to be a list of entities, just like we've done today with phone numbers, but it's going to have some more functionality, some automation that will, for example, you'll be able to set up an email that goes out at a predefined time. And so that'll get into being able to write an email, being able to set a schedule for it, writing some logic to send it, and to watch the clock to send it at the appropriate time. All right, I see no questions.
I think an interesting one is that if you show the phone numbers list, we've actually put links there that you can click, and it integrates with if you have a calling application, you can call directly from the link. It's a built-in feature in browsers, but it's so handy, so it's much more integrated.
Right.
Or
so this,
not on this one. Okay, on the
yeah, it integrates here. So again, this is what we've built in functionality, and as we redevelop this with a user in mind, a user front end, Then this functionality, if you'll notice down in the lower left, it has the telephone hyperlink. If we click it, and it's going to try and make a call here, but we don't have an app associated with it on my browser. But if you were to browse here on a phone, that link would definitely open and call. Absolutely. Good point. Thank you. Is there anything else I skipped past, Bogdan?
There is a question from Jen.
I'll take it. All right. If we use a custom template in the grid, is there a way to display all numbers in a list without having to click to drill down to the data? That is a great question. And yes, we could, that would be one spot of customization that we could do. So the question is, if we're looking at the phone numbers for a contact, we're looking at a contact, we have 5 phone numbers, but they're not displaying. So is it possible to display them in this grid? Absolutely. Is it possible to look in the details and add it, for example, as a box out here? Absolutely. That could be done with a token, and it wouldn't be terribly hard to do. So it allows the data to be relational and yet displayed in a convenient format. So I hope that answers the question. And since you've asked that question, I'll try to work that in, whether we actually do it or just I have it ready to display for next week. I'll try and have that. Great. Anything else I missed? If not, then Bogdan, I think I'll let you close us out.
Yes, I think it was a great demo, building something from scratch with a purpose in mind, and the purpose replacing a legacy system. I think we all have at least one of those in our portfolio of applications. So I think it's a very practical example of how easy task can be, because yes, legacy software looks scary and looks like it's expensive and it takes a lot of effort to change. But in reality, low-code makes it a lot less of a effort. Thanks everyone for being here again this week. I hope you enjoyed the content. Make sure to submit the feedback form, because we take feedback very seriously. And thanks Dale for putting up this content, content with building an application from scratch today.
Absolutely. Hope to expand on it next week.
Sounds good. See you all next week. Bye.